Hey everyone, it's Eric, and I'm back, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for all the positive feedback and the positive comments that you gave me in my last video. And out of popular demand, you guys wanted me to talk about the required GPAs that you need in different business lines. Specifically, I'm going to talk about like high finance careers, consulting careers, accounting, as well as the multitude of other business lines that you can go into. So let's get started with finance. So I'm going to be talking about high finance specifically, and so these are more capital markets roles such as sales and trading, investment banking, equity research. Typically for the big five in Canada, this includes BMO, RBC, Scotiabank, TD, CIBC. For these banks, in these roles, you typically have two different stages of recruitment. So one is non-diverse candidates and the other is diverse candidates. So diverse candidates include those that are minorities, women, LGBTQ+. So you would typically qualify as a diverse candidate. And as a diverse candidate, you need a 3.5 as the cutoff. But ideally, in order to be a competitive candidate, you typically need a 3.6 and above as a girl. And then as a guy, you typically need around a 3.7 and above, but ideally a 3.8 and above if you can. And then for non-diverse candidates, the cutoff is usually a little higher. And these aren't specific cutoffs, but obviously I've talked to people at these banks and I've talked to people in Upper York who have done recruitment as well as myself. When I did recruitment, there are like unsaid cutoffs. And so for non-diverse candidates, those unsaid cutoffs are around a 3.7. And then as a guy, you want at least a 3.8 and above. And then if you want to work in a bulge bracket, let's say in the United States, the competition is obviously a lot higher. And as an international student going into the United States, you would require a higher GPA to be competitive in that process. And so typically you would want in general around a 3.8 or a 3.9 and above if possible. And that's how you kind of qualify for that. So let's move on to consulting careers. And so obviously I myself am not in consulting, but I've spoken to people who are going into it, as well as online forums. And so the general consensus is that it's very similar to high finance careers. You do need a cutoff of around a 3.5 GPA, and then ideally, if you can, try to get above a 3.7 or 3.8. That puts you at a pretty good spot. And then for McKinsey, I know it takes a little more into account GPA than Bain and BCG, but other than that, that's kind of the cutoff you need for consulting. And then for accounting, obviously there are the big four firms. That includes KPMG, Deloitte, EY, and PwC. And so for these four firms, typically the GPA requirements are a little lower. The cutoff is maybe around a 3.3. And then if you have a 3.5 or 3.6 and above, that's obviously ideal. For Deloitte, it might be a little higher than the other firms. And then I have seen candidates go in and get offers with low 3.0. For other lines of business, such as marketing, HR, strategy, things like that, some of them you don't even need GPAs on your resume. For example, marketing, you typically wouldn't need that. There are different lines of business that do and don't, but typically I'd say overall high 2.0s to low 3.0s would put you in a pretty good spot for that. Just keep in mind that the lower your GPA, the less opportunities that you might have available for you just because of the cutoffs. So let's say that you wanted to do marketing, and that's what you focused on your entire career, so you don't need to focus on grades as much and you want to work on your own portfolio in your free time. But then you realize that marketing isn't what you wanted and you want to go into finance, but maybe you have low 3.0s or high 2.0s, and that would make you kind of unqualified for high finance careers. And so you just want to make sure that you're always aiming for as high as you can to not cut yourself out of opportunities in the future. But just one thing to keep in mind, it's not all about your grades or your GPA. There are three golden things that you kind of need in recruitment for anything that you're going into. So one is your GPA / your grades. Two is your work and extracurricular experience. And three is your network, as well as the connections that you have in the industry. And so these three are obviously the most important, and typically if you have two out of the three, you're at a relatively good spot. And if you have all three, then that puts you in a really, really good spot. It allows you to kind of reap the benefits from having all three, and you'll most likely get the interviews that you want for the firms that you want. So my final tip that I'll leave you with is just try to make sure that you're not fully focusing on your grades throughout your entire university career. Specifically for consulting and finance and even accounting now, the recruitment timelines are really pushed up. So your GPA doesn't really even matter once you're in third or fourth year, and that's what people won't tell you, is that your GPA really is crucial in your first and second year, and it's completely different than high school. So you just have to make sure that you're grinding really hard in your first and especially your second year, and that's where you'll kind of see the results coming in your recruitment process. And so yeah, those are kind of the tips that I have for you and the different career paths that you might want to go into, and hopefully that helped. Hopefully that put some inspiration and you reach for the higher GPA. day. So thank you so much for watching, and once again, I hope you subscribe and leave a comment if you have any comments, if you have any video suggestions. I'd love to hear from you, and have a great day.